For the next hour, you'll be leaving the Show Me state and entering the Show Me the Money state. So stop what you're doing, grab a pen, and get ready to learn. Randy and Jake Floyd of Floyd Financial Group will be your guides for straight talk and honest answers about living the life you deserve in retirement. So prepare to be empowered. Now, here are your Show Me the Money hosts, Randy Floyd, Jake Floyd, and Jeff Shade.
Good morning and welcome to Show Me the Money with Randy and Jake Floyd, the radio show that gives you the straight talk and honest answers you need to help you reach your wealth management and retirement goals through smart investing and careful planning. My name's Jeff Shade, and as always, I am just here to ask the questions, but the words of wisdom and solid advice, they come from Randy and Jake Floyd of Floyd Financial Group. I'll start with you. Hey, Randy, how you doing this fine Saturday morning?
Doing very well, Jeff. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And Jake, how's the Saturday finding you?
Just fine, Jeff. Thank you for asking.
You're certainly welcome. I hope our listeners are doing well today, too. Another exciting show lined up for us today. Early part of August. Where's the time gone? Well, we're going to try to break it down for you on today's show. Let's start with current events. And I know the Olympics has been going on. I haven't seen any of that at all. My wife watches it. Have either of you been watching the Olympics?
Yes, I've been watching a little bit of the key stuff that I am interested in. You know, there's so much to watch that it's pretty crazy, but I've been watching, of course, my cycling. I watched the time trials of the mountain biking, that has been going on. I did watch some swimming and some things like that. But, for the most part, like a lot of people, it's kind of during the day and all spread around, and it's kind of hard to even watch the way they have it set up. I remember the days of Wide World of Sports.
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
that?
Yep, absolutely.
With Kurt Gowdy and
Howard
Cosell. Howard Cosell would say that lad is loaded with inexperience, which means you're basically loaded with nothing, right? So,
yeah. Well, how do you think you would do by comparison with some of these Olympic bikers? These guys are incredible.
It would be like an inchworm racing a road runner.
Well, the Olympics are always a lot of fun. You get to see the athletes from all different parts of the world, who's going to shake hands, who's not going to shake hands, and so forth. This Olympics has been a little bit controversial. I would say more than just a little bit controversial. And I'm really surprised at the Olympic Committee as far as the opening ceremonies go.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, what will work in today's world and what people think is okay. I think they're a little misguided in most situations on that, and we won't get too deep into that. But yeah, it's been kind of a lackluster, I would say, start. I remember when the Olympics used to be something that, hey, it was about the competition. It was friendly, it was healthy, and actually, it was trying to actually maybe spawn some unity. I think today, I don't even know that it does that anymore. I think that people are just everything is just me, and they're complaining continually and filing complaints, and it's kind of crazy. It's sad, but anyway, it's happening, and hopefully the U.S. will come away with their share of the medals, and that'll be good.
Yeah, well, it gives us an alternative to the summer reruns, I guess. So those are the Olympics. I guess they're on for a couple of weeks, coming to you from France. Let's get into what else is happening right now as far as the market and the economy goes. I wanted to talk about Google a little bit. I use Google an awful lot, but it appears that Google is not an unbiased source of information.
Probably at one time it would have been when, of course, they were pioneering everything, trying to figure out how do we get the information loaded and how do we get it downloaded and how do we get it all or as much as possible. But I think today, it's like anything. After a while, when people have too much control, if they're unbridled and there's nobody checking, they tend to go awry.
Well, and all the politicians are in Google's pocket. Let's be clear. A lot of the super PAC money that goes to get them elected comes from Google. Microsoft, Apple, all these guys. There's no way that you could look at the situation and go, it's perfectly fine for Apple to pay $27 billion a year to be the default search engine on an iPhone. Right? You have two of the largest companies out there going together. We're supposed to have antitrust laws preventing anti-competitive behavior in this country. And these companies participate in anti-competitive behavior constantly without ceasing. And then when you have one of these companies really kind of start to go rogue, some people may have seen this last week where they kind of censored Trump from the Google searches, where you started to put in like President TRU, right? And Trump wouldn't come up. President Truman would come up, but President Trump would not. If you Googled Trump, Kamala Harris would come up. If you Google Kamala Harris comes up. They are purposely disseminating their nonsense And honestly, I really think they ought to be held accountable for it. Now, I don't think they will be, at least not now. It is important to understand that when you Google something, you are getting what Google wants you to see, not what you want to see. Just remember that as you're searching, and just be careful out there.
I use YouTube a lot. Is YouTube equally biased, do you think?
You know, Jeff, unfortunately, I do think it is. Google owns YouTube in its entirety, and the same types of metrics are applied to YouTube. In fact, some of the YouTube podcasts run both on YouTube and Rumble, which is the only real competitor to YouTube out there. Rumble is totally unbiased and has maximized freedom of speech. And so they'll run their shows on both of these, but they'll have to do extra editing for YouTube so it doesn't get taken down, because if they say what's on their mind, Google may or may not like it and will take it down and try to censor them. So I will say that YouTube is a wealth of information. There's nothing wrong with using YouTube, and I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying just realize that when you search for things, when you interact with YouTube, Google, that you are getting, again, served what they want to serve you.
Are there competitors other than Rumble to YouTube? I mean, are there competitors to Google that are up and coming possibly?
Right now, there's really not a whole lot else. It's been speculated over the last week that Elon Musk might have an X.com product to compete with Google. He's already working on XAI, and part of that may be a search function or a search-like chatbot or something that is actually unbiased, or at least as unbiased as you can make something. Nothing is without bias. I think that would be a good thing, just to challenge Google. There's basically two real search engines out there. You have Bing and Google, and everything else is like a massive distant third. Right. But Google has like a 90% market share. It would be good for the industry as a whole to eat into some of that.
Yeah, and I think that Google has become an American lexicon. I mean, you always talk about Googling something when you want to find out more about it. So that is interesting. I had no idea that they could be that biased, because the only thing I use them for is to find out how to do something. As I said, no longer do you get instruction manuals with things. You simply just Google it, or you go on YouTube. We're talking with Randy and Jake Floyd Financial Group. We're talking about current events. Our phone number, 417-889-7233. If you'd like to come in and sit down and talk to us, 417-889-7233. Let's talk a little bit about bank rates coming down. Do we see that that's going to be happening, or is it already happening?
Well, it's already happening some, Jeff. I think the thing that's kind of interesting here is media has it that almost, and I haven't looked at the pundits that always are watching, what's supposedly going to happen and what percentage it is. But I think for the most part, the media says that they feel like September will be the first rate cut, which would be somewhere around the middle of September.
Yeah, and I think, Jeff, I have been watching that stuff, and I would say that in September there is currently a basically 100% chance of a rate cut, and there's a possible chance of a 50 basis point rate cut of 10% is what they're pricing in. Now, again, we will see how that evolves, that situation evolves, because that can change for sure. But I think it's important to realize that, we're definitely going to be lowering rates for one reason or another. We're going to lower rates because we defeat inflation, or we're going to lower rates because we break something trying to defeat inflation.
Right.
But either way, interest rates are going to come down, whether it's over the next month, 3 months, 12 months, 18 months is the question. And as soon as we start seeing the actual cutting of rates, I think you're going to see that banks really, without hesitation, really gut rates big. If you've been looking at buying fixed annuity products or anything else, life insurance, anything else that is interest rate sensitive, now may be a good time to do that and talk about that, because you probably have about a month before the bottom will fall out of most of those rates.
Right. The thing we're also seeing right now, Jake, is the fact that if we look back over our shoulder a year or so, banks were willing to do 15, 18, 2-year CDs. Now they're wanting to skew them back to 6 and 7 months to get the bigger rates. And if you go out further than that, the rate actually is declining now rather than going up. The reason is, and for people that really aren't maybe in tune with how this works, banks have two sources of getting money. They can go and borrow from the Federal Reserve, or they can borrow from you and I, Jeff, as depositors in the form of CDs and money market accounts and that sort of thing. What they don't want to do is they don't want to get on the hook to pay Jeff 5% for the next 5 years while they know that interest rates are going to come down. They can go to the Fed and get it for cheaper. So that's one thing that's out there that's pulling on that right now. The second thing is, as the Fed funds rate comes down, that is key for interest rates in the housing market as well. So be some interesting things to watch as these things do start to tick down. And I agree with Jake, it is going to happen.
As you said, half-point rate cut possible in September. What are we looking at for the rest of the year? Can we expect another rate cut till 2025?
So I think when Jerome Powell comes out and he does whatever he does in September, and the reaction to that, and not only the immediate reaction, but the delayed reaction that will come up in then October and November, will be the determining factor as to what he does next.
So the Fed Watch right now has priced in a 6% chance of a full percentage cut by the end of the year, and has a 54% chance of 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. Again, it doesn't mean it's right, and then we can't take that to the bank necessarily, but at the same time, it shows you the sentiment of people and the concern that people have about how high interest rates are and how long they've been high, and that really we need to bring interest rates back down. We've seen the yield curve going back to flat-ish from being inverted for the last 2 years, and so that shows a normalizing of the bond market. You know, we're not there yet, but it's starting to get that way, and I think that over the next few months it's going to continue. So everybody just get out and vote.
We're going to be talking about what a Kamala Harris presidency would look like as far as taxes go here in the next segment. Meantime, if our conversation resonates with you, you'd like to get in and sit down with Randy and Jake at Floyd Financial Group, call this number this weekend, 417-889-7233, and ask for your complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation Floyd Financial Group Retirement Review. As I said, it's not going to cost you a dime. You can call it this weekend, leave your name, telephone number. Ashley will call you back during the week and set up a time that is convenient for you and our advisors here at Floyd Financial Group. Particularly, it's Randy and Jake. So take advantage of this opportunity while it exists. 417-889-7233. Have this casual conversation to put you on a path towards a confident retirement. Again, it's not going to cost you a dime. There is no obligation and no judgment. Once again, 417-889-7233. You can also find out more about us online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Time for a break, gentlemen. When we come back, what a Kamala Harris presidency would mean if you plan to retire in 2025. All that and more when our show continues here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
Ready for another helping of some more real money talk? Thought so. Now, here's another serving of Show Me the Money with your hosts, Randy and Jake Floyd, with Jeff Shade.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy and Jake. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about some key tax initiatives that are sunsetting, or that have actually not initiatives, they've been out there, that are sunsetting in 2025, the tax cuts that Trump put into place in 2017.
So a lot to talk about in this segment, Randy. First of all, let's talk about higher taxes. Is it a foregone conclusion that if Kamala Harris is elected president, that she will stray very far from Biden's tax policies of higher taxes?
Yeah, I would say that she will not stray too far from there, where they know they want to raise taxes. And Biden would have loved to have done that while he was the president, but he had so many other things, to deal with that he didn't quite get around to getting that done. And of course, had he been reelected, he would have definitely gone after the tax structure as he had planned to do, and even had set forth way back in like February of 22, I think, Jake, is when we were seeing all that for the last time, all that stuff going on. But again, there was so much going on that he wasn't able to get there. But a couple things I would like to point out here. In 2025 is the sunset provision. That's when the Trump tax cuts will start to go away. And those are specifically, we lowered all the tax brackets. We raised all the exemptions. Today, a married couple at 65 gets about $30,000 just right off the top of whatever your earnings are before you start paying taxes. If we were to look at the tax policies that would probably come back under the Democrats, you're going to pay at the lowest bracket probably at least 2% more, 3% more in the second bracket. And then everything is kind of 3 to 5% more spread on out through those brackets. Capital gains is going to be another thing that will be really interesting to watch. I don't know if you remember, Jeff, but one of the things that President Biden wanted to do was tax us on capital gains that we hadn't realized yet.
Yeah, unrealized. That's crazy.
Yeah,
You're paying taxes on something that's on paper, but what if you pay taxes because it goes up and then it goes back down again?
Exactly. And I think we need to explain what we mean by unrealized gains. So when people invest in land or they invest in stocks and bonds and that sort of thing, if the value of the asset increases, that's a capital gain. And if it's a short-term capital gain, it's taxed as regular income like your paycheck or anything else. If it's a long-term capital gain, 12 months or more that you've held that piece of property, whatever it may be, a stock or land or whatever, then it's a long-term capital gain. Well, one of the things that Biden wanted to do was he wanted to really get people up to the top tax bracket of 37% if he could on capital gains. He also wanted to do away with what's called the step up in basis. So what's the step up in basis? So the step up in basis says, Jeff, let's say you're my dad.
Okay.
You're not, but
son.
But and you have a piece of land that you purchased, and you paid, $250,000 for it, and over your lifetime while you've owned it, it's now worth $500,000.
Right.
When you pass away, if you pass that land to me as a result of your death, I would get a step up from what you paid, the $250,000, to the current market value of $500,000. And if I sell that property at $500,000, I owe no capital gains taxes. However, under Biden's plan, what he wanted to do was eliminate that step up and make me, when I sold it, pay on that $250,000 as a capital gain. So the step up in basis being removed it's a crazy thing. You've already bought and paid for the land one time, and
Sure.
And then secondly, the just raising of capital gains tax in general. And then the unrealized gain is where I own stock. Maybe I bought a stock, paid $100 a share for it. Today it's worth $200 a share. I still own the stock. I haven't realized it, but hey, you've got $100 per share gain in there, Jeff. We need to go in and get our tax money out of there right now. And no, I know you haven't realized it, but we want our tax money now. So how do you get the tax money? Where do you come up with that? You have to come up with it from someplace else. So just some really stupid stuff, if you ask me, that they want to do.
This is crazy. So you can't even afford to inherit something, like a house or property or land anymore. That is unconscionable as far as I'm concerned.
The whole tax thing is really crazy. The one thing that I would say, too, that people need to realize is that probably about 50% of Americans don't really pay much in income tax, if any. And those that have invested and done well and have 401ks and IRAs and are living out of those, along with Social Security, are ending up still, paying the taxes and paying the bulk of that. And then those people that are working and making, there's a common thought across the country, and it's been supported and purported by people for years and years, is that people that make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year in income don't pay any taxes. And I'm just telling you, that's not true. Now,
No.
you may have land and things that appreciate that you haven't sold yet that push your net worth up, right? But your net worth, like if you have a piece of farmland and you paid $250,000 for it and now it's worth $500,000, how much income do you realize out of that? Well, you don't realize any income out of that. That's why you don't pay any taxes on it until you sell it and realize that gain. But if you're having income come in, whether that's 1099 income, W-2 income, and then 1099, it could be business income, 1120S income, whatever that may be, before your expenses and all that, you don't get to spend all that. You get the net, and then you get taxed on that as ordinary income, and you fall in the bracket. And there's really no way to avoid that. You can max out your 401ks, you can max out all your retirement investment strategies, but you still end up paying a huge load of taxes on that. I would encourage people, there is something out online that's kind of fun to watch. And it's done by an accounting firm, and it's been out there for a number of years. It's called Your Taxes Explained in Beer. Now,
okay, something people can relate to. Got it.
Well, what it amounts to is I'm not saying anybody should go out and start drinking beer or anything like that. I'm saying is it really breaks down how the system works.
Okay.
And it really will give people a clear understanding of what's going on with the tax system.
Taxes Explained with Beer. We're talking with Randy and Jake Floyd of Floyd Financial Group. We're talking about what a possible Kamala Harris presidency would mean to taxes. Questions about our topic right now, 417-889-7233, 417-889-7233. So let's talk about death tax. I didn't know that you had to pay tax on dying as well.
Well, right now you don't have to unless, as a married couple, if you die simultaneously, you got $22 million you can give away, or roughly that number.
In America, literally everything is taxable. But, I mean, it seems like literally everything. In fact, Randy was talking about that video. That video will make you laugh and cry and seethe all in about 5 minutes. But it's hilarious, and it's very true. There's another video out there that talks about taxation, and basically, it goes through, you pay income tax. Once you have the income, right, you buy something, you pay tax on that.
Yeah.
If it's personal property, you keep paying tax on it for as long as you have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you sell it for a profit, you pay capital gains tax. And so it's crazy. I think we're approaching another Tea Party moment here.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if these tax dollars were used to improve the quality of life in the country and for some important things. But most of the time, it seems these taxes are wasted. But yeah, I know a lot of people who make six figures and above that, and believe you me, they do pay their share in taxes. So if Kamala Harris is actually elected president here for 2025, I don't know the likelihood of that actually happening. But let's say, for example, that is in the cards. What can we do as investors and consumers today to prepare ourselves for the sunset of these 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act taxes?
Well, right now, go out and I would campaign for Donald Trump to get elected. Would be the first thing I would do, because we know this. Here's really what it boils down to. So if Harris is elected, not much will change except that taxes will go up. We know that. She will continue to fund many of the woke agendas that I don't particularly agree with, and continue to hand out money. She will make it hard on business. She will continue to make it hard on energy in this country. If we get Trump in there, Trump is going to make us an energy leader, probably the world leader. We may already be there, according to a lot, but I think we'll see oil prices go way down, which will help us drive inflation down even further. He will maintain these tax cuts. He will incentivize business to grow. He will deregulate business so that we can actually make a business plan and look down the road and be able to follow a business plan and feel good about it, rather than the ball always moving. You never know quite where it's going to be. He will lower corporate taxes. That alone will translate to a higher stock market, and people will want to invest more money and have more money to invest after that happens, because corporate profits will go up.
And a Trump presidency likely brings back what's known as the TINA trade, which we haven't talked about in a few years now. There is no alternative, meaning if interest rates come down, which he will likely want them down, and we can talk about that another time, that will mean that the stock market will be pretty much the only place to go to make money, because you won't be able to make money on CDs and fixed interest investments and that kind of thing. If you have somebody who's paying attention that's managing your money, this could be the greatest wealth creation event of your lifetime if a few things go right. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention yourself, or if you are not comfortable making all those decisions, that you're hiring somebody who is paying attention, not somebody who's going to quote unquote manage your money and then just sit there and never make a change to it for the next 10 years while he bills you. You need somebody who's actually paying attention, that's actually going to try to put you in a scenario where you can make money. And the landscape is going to shift a lot, and it's going to require changes. You can't just buy and hold the way we might have been able to in the 80s. You need a plan and you need a strategy.
If you're listening to the program today, you do not have a plan or a strategy, you're worried about what could happen if Kamala Harris is elected president insofar as taxes go, listen up, because this is for you. It's an opportunity for you to sit down with Randy and Jake at Floyd Financial Group and get ahead of this thing. Talk about taxes, talk about one person becoming president versus the other person, and make a plan so that you can maximize your retirement income and your retirement plan. Again, no cost and no obligation for this. It's the Floyd Financial Group Retirement Review. We're offering it to you this weekend. No cost, no obligation, and no judgment for that. 417-889-7233 is our telephone number. I know it is the weekend, But go ahead, call that number while you're thinking about it. All you've got to do is leave your name and your telephone number. That's it. It's going to take you about 60 seconds to do that. Ashley will get that. She'll give you a call during the week and really look for an appointment time on your calendar and Randy and Jake's calendar that works for both of you so you can have that very casual conversation. And later on in the program today, in the last segment, we're going to talk about what that conversation looks like and what to expect. But right now, make that call, 417-889-7233. You've got a friend in the financial services business here at Floyd Financial Group who is not going to sit down and bring up some sort of product in the first 5 minutes or so. We're going to find out who you are, what your wants, your needs, your goals are, your vision for retirement, and reverse engineer a plan to get you there. Again, 417-889-7233. You can also find out more about us online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Time for a break. Randy and Jake, when we come back, estate planning. We're going to talk about a power of attorney and a lot of other things as far as estate planning goes when our show continues here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
We're back with your financial catch of the day, and it's a big one. Here's more Show Me the Money Radio with your hosts, Randy Floyd, Jake Floyd, and Jeff Shea.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy and Jake. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about estate planning. So the first question most people have is, well, Randy, what is an estate plan exactly?
Yeah, so Randy, I'll throw it back to you. Does everyone have an estate?
They absolutely do. Some estates are just bigger than others, right? So basically, an estate plan is, hey, what happens when I'm gone? What happens when I am no longer here? And you know, one thing we should probably discuss here, Jeff, is, you know, nobody makes it out of here alive.
No, you're not going to get out of here alive. What's going to happen to my coin collection? What's going to happen to my beloved cougar? You know, what's going to happen to your stuff, basically?
Absolutely. And how do you want that to go? Do you want it to go through a probate proceeding? In other words, do you want it to be subject to the court and everybody being able to file claims against your estate and all that sort of thing? Or do you want it done more privately? Do you want to have just a will-based estate? Do you want to have a trust? Do you need a trust? There's lots of questions that come up here. And so I'm going to hit just some of the basics of estate planning. And then I'm going to talk about something very specific, a situation that has happened and is happening right now in my own life and what's going on within my role as a power of attorney for both healthcare and finance for someone. So an estate plan, basically, like we said, Jeff, just basically says, hey, this is what I want to happen. This is who I want to have my stuff when I am dead and gone. A couple of ways to do that. We can assign what's called TOD, that's transfer on death, here in Missouri, on vehicles, on land, on basically stock accounts that are not IRAs. On land, it's in the state of Missouri, it's called a beneficiary deed you could use to avoid probate, and you can name on there who gets your stuff as soon as you die. Now, I will tell you, I am not an attorney. We have an attorney in the building, but I've been dealing with trusts for many, many years, and so I'm just going to hit some of the high points here, but you obviously need to talk to an attorney when you start looking at doing your estate plan, and we can do that here through Floyd Law Group that is in the same building here, should you be interested in doing that. So we can avoid probate by transfer on death, pay on death at bank accounts. We can use a beneficiary deed for property to avoid that. And again, there's caveats to each of these, and that's why you need to speak to someone that's qualified to talk about your specific situation with family and all that and how that plays out. But nobody really wants to go to probate because it's kind of like filing a lawsuit against your kids if that's who's going to get your stuff, and nobody would want to do that. Now, some of the documents that come along in an estate plan that everyone should have is a power of attorney for finance, number one, and then for healthcare, for sure. In both cases, those are very important to have. So the power of attorney basically says this: if I don't have a trust, if I have a trust, you're going to assign somebody to succeed you as a trustee, because you may be very well your own trustee while you're alive. Depending on the type of trust you have, it may or may not be the case, but a lot of people, they're their own trustee while they're alive, and then when they pass, their child or maybe two of their children, or maybe it may be an outside trustee like a bank or somebody like that that's a professional trustee that will take over and run things. While you're alive, anything that's not titled or controlled by the trust and controlled by you directly, you will assign someone that's going to be a power of attorney, what we would call today the attorney in fact. They have all the power that you do to deal with your stuff in the event you become incapacitated. Now, let's talk about incapacity for a moment. Sometimes incapacity is a short-term thing. You get bumped on the head, you have a car accident, heaven forbid, you have a motorcycle wreck or whatever it may be, and you're temporarily where you can't make decisions for yourself, and then you get better. And then there's those things that happen to us later in life where we are not going to get better, and somebody needs to handle all those things that are not controlled by the trust. So if you don't have a trust, that would be everything, checking and savings and all your income that comes in from Social Security and paying your bills and all those sorts of things are going to come into play. Also, they are going to be making health care choices for you. Now, you can have somebody different make your health care choices, but somebody's going to ultimately have to pay the bill for your health care choices and what has happened to you as well. Just a couple of things I want to throw out. So a friend of mine had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
They found him actually laying beside his car in a parking lot.
Oh, my.
So they got him into the hospital. He was in the neurotrauma ICU.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was his power of attorney, he had my information in his wallet. And guess what they did? They called me.
Right.
And they said, so-and-so has had a stroke. He's at the neurotrauma ICU. You're the only contact we have. Who are you?
Right.
Okay. So I said, well, I am his power of attorney. Do you have a copy of that we can see? So one of the things I would tell people, if you are going to be a power of attorney for somebody, you should go ahead and have that person that you're going to be power of attorney for, go ahead and file those with all your financial institutions and your life insurance companies, if you got those, all those things, so that they know who that person is, and it's been through the legal system at whatever institution that is before this happens. And what I mean by that is I had to go to a bank and take this document in because it hadn't been done before. And before I could do that, because this was a springing power of attorney, I had to go get 2 doctors that said this person is incapacitated and actually write letters to go along with the power of attorney before I could file it with the financial institution. So once I did that, then it took the financial institution somewhere between 7 and 14 days to approve the power of attorney. Then I had to go back and see the bank again and set up, me as power of attorney and sign off on documents so that I could actually write checks to pay this person's bills. The other thing that would be important is if you're going to be power of attorney, there should be a lockbox or a fireproof box or some place that you can go and access documentation, statements and that sort of thing, passwords, checkbooks, all those sorts of things, so that you can actually fulfill your role as power of attorney should you come up into this situation as I have. Now, for me, knowing how all this stuff works, it was not a major deal for me. I just knew I had to get through it, right? But
Right.
for a lot of people, they wouldn't know the first thing unless we've had this conversation as to how to go about being ready to actually fulfill your role as that power of attorney. Also, are you able to act on your own? If you've got brothers and sisters, it may be that you have to act together with another sibling. I mean, all these things come into play when you do your estate plan, and how you set it up in the beginning is going to be how it's going to play out, whether that's, somebody acting jointly, somebody acting on their own. And then, of course, you always have the thing of, well, if somebody's acting on their own and you got brothers and sisters, are they doing the right thing? That's not how I would have done it. All these things come into play. So I just wanted to kind of go down that list and just tell people, it's not something that you're just automatically going to know exactly what to do unless you've kind of rehearsed it a little bit in the beginning.
Well, it's a good thing that he had that card in his wallet that named you power of attorney. At least, they knew what to do. What if someone does not have a power of attorney? What happens then?
Yeah, so if somebody's incapacitated and they don't have a power of attorney, then we're going to have to go to court and get a conservatorship over the money and a guardianship over the person. So it's a court proceeding to get it done. It's not a major costly thing. It's probably, I don't know what it would cost today, $500 to $1,000 probably at least to get it done. And you're going to be delayed in getting it done. And then also, to get it done, you're going to have 2 doctors sign off that this person is incapacitated ahead of that as well. That brings up another good point. When you set up a power of attorney for finance, there's 2 ways to set it up. Number 1 is springing, meaning it springs into action when you become incapacitated, and you have these 2 doctors' letters to support it. The other type is an immediate power of attorney, which means that the day you signed it, that thing is valid and the person that you've named on there can act on your behalf. I have an immediate power of attorney on me. My wife has an immediate power of attorney on her. And you have to trust that person. Whoever your power of attorney is, you need to be sure that's a trusted individual, because they're going to have a lot of power should you become incapacitated. So immediate is what I prefer, because it just makes everything cleaner and simpler for everyone. And ultimately, if I'm the one that's in trouble and I'm needing care, I don't want my power of attorney to have to wait around for 6 months while he figures out if he can help me.
Is that gentleman that was found next to his car that had the POA card in his wallet, was he married?
No, he is a single individual, and this is kind of almost the worst case scenario. He's a single individual, and most of his family has deceased. I think he has maybe a niece or a nephew in California, but he hasn't seen them in years.
So if someone is married and they do not have a POA, do these duties fall to the legal spouse, or do you still need a POA?
Yeah, in most cases they will, but you're going to still have to go through the court to get certain powers unless you have named your spouse as the power of attorney, which you would want to do in most cases. There's a few exceptions to that, where maybe somebody's already incapacitated that you would have named or would have liked to have named, and you have to skip that person.
Okay, so we need a power of attorney, and of course you talked about transfer on death, the POD, of course, which you can get at the bank, power of attorney for finance and health care. How difficult is it to get a POA and get this TOD and POD?
So to get a power of attorney, you see an attorney. They will draft it for you. It won't take very long to do. They're going to ask you, though, who do you want as your primary backup? And then they'll name at least one alternative to that. Sometimes they will go too deep. In other words, your wife, maybe if you're married, and then two beyond that they will name, so that there's never any chance that you're going to be without a power of attorney and have to go through the court system to get a guardianship or conservatorship. It doesn't take long to do at all. It's very inexpensive. It just depends on who you go to see. I'm thinking somewhere between $150, and it could be a little more than that depending on the attorney. I don't price these things for the attorneys, but that's kind of what I see. So the POD and TOD and things like that, that's just simply a function of going to your financial institution. If it's a bank, they're going to use what's called pay on death. If it's a brokerage company, like a Charles Schwab or a Merrill Lynch or a Ed Jones or somebody like that, they're going to have a TOD form, a transfer on death form, for those non-IRA accounts. And then for the IRA accounts, they will simply set up beneficiary designations that always bypass the probate system.
Okay, so again, if you've got a car or something like that, that can be transferred with a TOD. And if I'm hearing you correctly, Randy, that is something that you can get at the bank?
Well, the TOD is going to come. You have to go ahead and have that put on the title at your DMV.
Now, again, for people who have just joined us, you touched on it earlier. We as individuals, what can we do today that will help our power of attorney execute things smoothly?
Yeah, just be sure that they know where things are. In other words, have things to where you've had a conversation and they know what's going on. And if you have a situation where you completely change all your banking and all your stuff, say you move, you should update them on that when you do that, because ultimately they're there to help you and to protect you when you can't help and protect yourself.
Okay, well, bottom line is put all these things down. Maybe there's a little book or something that says, here's all the information that you would need, but it's going to be passwords, usernames, and passwords. So many people today do not get paper bills, so that's going to be very, very important. Just anything else that you think that someone would want to know, make sure that you document that and you tell someone who could be your power of attorney where those things are. Talking with Randy and Jake of Floyd Financial Group, talk about estate planning, POD, and POA and TOD. If you're interested in this conversation today, you want to make sure that you've got things in order, give us a call here at Floyd Financial Group and talk about that with Randy or Jake Floyd. Our telephone number, 417-889-7233. We can talk about a whole host of things, including estate planning. 417-889-7233. Make that call this weekend. Phone lines are open. Leave your name and telephone number. Ashley will call you back during the week and set up an appointment that's convenient for you. We can talk about any aspect of retirement planning that you want. It is a casual conversation. And again, it's not going to cost you a dime and there is no obligation whatsoever. 417-889-7233. You can also find out more about us online and request your appointment at floydfinancialgroup.com. It's floydfinancialgroup.com. Time for a break. Randy and Jake, when we come back, we'll talk about what this initial consultation looks like and more when our show continues right here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
People of the Ozarks, step away from the fishing pole and prepare to be shown the money, because we're back with more straight talk and honest answers with Randy Floyd, Jake Floyd, and Jeff Shea.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy and Jake. You're listening to Show Me the Money. In this final segment, we're going to be talking about, if I were to come see you, Randy, what does that look like and what can I expect?
Yeah, so many people don't know when they call 417-889-7233. They set up that appointment. They come in and maybe they're a little reticent because they don't know what's going to happen when you come in to have that initial conversation. I understand that it is a 5-step process. What should we expect in general when we come in to see you?
Yeah, I think before I actually get into the 5 steps, I want to preface it by saying this. So, number one, it is a very casual environment, and we are just going to get to know each other and talk. The thing about it is most people retire one time. Mm-hmm. They don't retire multiple times. We retire people every week, and so we know a lot of the questions that are probably already on your mind, but you're going to have some, and we're happy to answer anything. But I think the biggest thing, that I want to run down here is I got 3 or 4 things that I think are important. Number one, when people come in and they sit down and they think, well, I'm thinking about not working. Number one is, where's my income going to come from?
Yeah.
Right? and what's that going to look like? So we will talk about that when we get there. The other thing is, of course, when you have income, what's next? Well, what does my tax picture look like? And then also, hey, if something happens to me, what happens to my stuff? So we've talked about the estate plan just a little bit, so we're going to talk about that. And yes, we're going to talk about investing. And we're going to talk about investing in such a way that you don't glaze over and fall asleep while we're blowing the air toward you as we speak about all these investments.
That's a good term. Okay.
All right.
Not literally, of course.
And then finally, we're going to get to, okay, so yeah, that kind of makes sense. Now, how do we get there? Right? That's the question. I mean, that's the real question. How do we get there? And what are the moving parts that we have to explore to get there? Right. So that then takes us to the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. And this is how we approach getting this information without putting a bright light in your face, and giving you truth serum. And
First of all, we don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Please realize we don't do that, okay? This is just an example. So we come in and sit down, we meet you, there's Ashley, she's got a nice soda, she's got some cookies or whatever, and then we come into the room and you're going to go into the conference room, we're going to sit down with you. As we said, it's a no-tie zone. We can sit down with Jake, he's not wearing a tie either. Could be either one of you or it could be both of you. Now, before we get to that so-called scary money stuff, you really get to know somebody. Why is it important to know where they're from, what they like to do, to see if we have any mutual friends, that sort of thing? Why is that important?
Well, there's a lot of different takes on what retirement is, right? So I have people that come in and they say, man, when I retire for the first 5 years, I'm buying a motor home and I ain't ever coming back here. Okay? And then there's people that say, well, my idea is I want to take 4 trips a year and I want to go abroad and I want to see the West, or I want to see every state in the U.S., or I have people that say, hey, I got cattle, I got land, and what I want to do is park on the porch every morning and every evening and look out at my cattle and drink some coffee or whatever. And then there's everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know that until I have a chance to have a conversation with you. And I will tell you that sometimes there's a little division even between husband and wife. And the wife wants to travel some, and the husband says, I don't ever want to travel anymore. I've been traveling my whole life for my career or whatever. But this is part of step 1, which is what we call discovery. And it's just where we get to know people and know what's important to them. If I don't know what's important to you, how can I possibly help you with any advice? So that's first and foremost is discovery, learning about you and what you want.
And we call that lifestyle planning. We got to figure out what your lifestyle is. And as you said, among couples, it can be a very, very different thing. You told the story once. I want you to tell it briefly again about the couple who came in and they were retiring and the man bought the motorhome.
Oh yeah, this has been some years ago, and he came in and he was showing me pictures and he told me about it. And he says, "Yeah, I got a satellite dish up on the side." He said, so I can take my laptop and no matter where I am, I can check my portfolio and we can do trading or whatever it is. And his wife was kind of appalled looking when he said that, and she says, well, I am not going, is what she said. So
not her idea of retirement. And I think many times too, the husband and wife, they have different ideas about what retirement's going to be like. And it comes down to lifestyle planning too, because, for 30 years or so, she's been used to not having him around. He's been used to not having her around for 8-10 hours a day. You put them together and it maybe isn't like it was during the honeymoon period. So yeah, you got to find out what your goals, your dreams, your wishes are for retirement and make sure that both parties are happy. Okay, so the first step is called discovery, discovering who you are, where you want to go in retirement, what your lifestyle is going to be like. You've done that. Okay, so now what's next?
So number 2, we're going to start looking at what people have saved and what their Social Security income looks like. If they're fortunate enough to have a pension plan, maybe what that looks like. What they have in the bank savings-wise, do they owe on a house, do they owe on a lake property, all those sorts of things. We're just going to really figure out where they are and say, okay, now, does this fit? And how do we make that fit is going to lead us into step 3. But analysis is just really finding out the resources that people have to support the lifestyle they've told us they want.
So it's what you've got, and it's sort of like a puzzle a little bit. You've got these holes to fill, and you just got to see if the right pieces are there to fill these holes, and if the right pieces are not there, maybe it's a different puzzle that you've got to design. Is it sometimes a reality check, or do most people operate within the realm of what they can really do?
Once in a while it's a reality check, but I would say for the most part, we live here in the middle of the country, the last bastion of sanity, and if they moved here from California, it's because they realized it.
Right.
So, most people are pretty well grounded when they come in here, but again, they haven't really thought about, how do I put this puzzle, how do I put Humpty Dumpty back together again when I retire, right?
It's falling off the wall. So discovery, we've discovered you, then we've analyzed what you've got to try to get there. What is the third step, Randy?
The third step then is the actual planning or the putting together of the puzzle, if you will. And so that's when we're going to drill down and just say, okay, so based on what you've told me and the income and the stuff that you need, this is how we would set things up. Now, it's not like, hey, it's my way or the highway. This is a starting point. And from here, the planning process sometimes gets massaged. And what I mean by massage is I say, well, we can see that the first 5 years, we're going to need to spend more money than we will later. Or some people say, you know what, I'm not going to need any money for a decade. So it's just different for everybody, and all the family dynamics are different. Hey, I want to give my sons and daughters some money now. All these different things come up that they hadn't voiced before. So during the planning process, we address all those different needs that people may have to arrive at a point they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So discovery, analysis, planning, that's 3 of the 5 steps. What is number 4?
Number 4 is implementation. In other words, so now that we've got the plan, where do we start to put the puzzle together? So what we do is we do all the paperwork and do all the contacting of where your assets are and restructure things to support the income you want, the lifestyle that you've told me you want, and get you on down the road and get you retired.
Okay, so we've implemented that plan. I'm now a client of Floyd Financial Group. Is there a way for me to follow up with you to follow up with me? Do you furnish me with logins, that sort of thing, so I can check on things? Or is it a set it and forget it? How does it work?
Yep, no set it and forget it. Like Jake said, this is always a changing landscape because life changes and we get different people in office and different tax structures and all that. But yeah, we continually monitor what's going on here on a daily basis across all of our clients, and we have models and situations that help us, and computers that help us do all that. And then there's a review process that we do. Generally, once you become a client, in the first 90 days, we're going to review, get back together, say, okay, how's it going? How's your income feeling? We need a little less, a little more. And then, we'll tell them what we're thinking about what's going on, update them on any system changes if there have been any. Once in a while there is, but not very often. But generally that review process we'll do every 90 days for a while. Then generally it'll graduate to every 6 months. And then we have some people that we've had for 20 plus years that we see them once a year, knowing that they can always call us any day because we're in the office here every day and we have a complete staff to serve them here, So, but we do want to review over and over, keep everybody on the same page. Everybody knows what's going on, how we're doing spending wise, and how our investments are doing. So that's an ongoing process.
So discovery, analysis, planning, implementation, and follow-up. That sounds like a lot of work, Randy. How many meetings is that in total, would you say, on average?
So it depends on the person, but generally speaking, we're going to have at least 2 meetings to do the discovery and the analysis and planning. And then there's generally a 3rd meeting to actually do the implementation and get it done. And then, like I said, after that, once it's set up, we're going to have our next meeting 90 days. It doesn't have to be 90 days. It can be sooner or it can be a little longer than that. But generally, 90 days is what we initially set up.
Okay, so that's a lot of work, and it comes down to this is, okay, you've done all of this. You've set up this retirement plan for me. You're not necessarily a philanthropic organization, even though I think that the work that you do here is a public service. Has anybody ever asked you, and what's your answer to this question, how do you get paid?
Sure thing. So when we manage, money for people, generally our annual fee is 1% per year to manage money, like if it's in the stock market or, bonds and things of that nature. But 1% a year is pretty much what we work for. There are some situations where companies will write us a check, a commission check or something like that, but they do not ding their account directly for that. Otherwise, it's going to be 1% per year, and I would say that's about our overall. Well, not about. It is what we charge, 1% per year.
Right. Well, you're not skimping on service, but you are the low price leader here in Springfield, Missouri for that. So that's what the initial conversation is going to be when you come in and sit down with Floyd Financial Group. And again, there's no cost. There is no obligation to this whatsoever. So, Randy, how can people get started on this path towards a confident retirement?
Sure thing. They just need to give us a call and have Ashley book an appointment. And, you're not promising us anything except that you'll show up for your appointment. We like to, if you're going to say you're going to be here, we like for you to be here. But other than that, all we're going to do is sit down and get to know one another. If you don't want to have another meeting with us, that's absolutely fine. We understand that. And many times we have people that come in 3, 4, 5, 6 years and even longer sometimes ahead of time to really make sure that they're on a solid path looking forward to retirement. And again, we can start this process now and really help them walk these final few years into that, and that's really a good outcome.
Randy, there are a lot of bright people out there listening to this program. They'd have to be smart to be listening to Show Me the Money. They think they can do this themselves. Why would you say that retirement planning and all the things that you do is not really a DIY project?
Yeah, so it's kind of like this. Sometimes people just, I'm retired. I don't want to go work and manage my retirement now too.
Right.
They want to go retire and have some fun, right? They don't want to be watching it every day. That's what people pay us to do. Also, rules change, laws change, investing requirements are changing all the time. The other thing I would say is many times you're not quite sure the right questions to ask. You don't know what you don't know. I'm that way in many things. That's why I am a big proponent, Jeff. I will tell you, if there's a do-it-yourself project at home, I never do it. I hire somebody that does it for a living. Yeah. And guess what? I'm not as stressed about it. My wife certainly isn't as stressed about it.
Yeah.
And hey, everybody gets paid. The economy works for everybody, right?
Yeah. I've learned that the hard way. I don't do things myself anymore. It just takes a couple of times of trying to do it yourself and then having to call in the plumber. Okay, so there's a study called the Dalbar study. I want people to look this up if they haven't seen it, DALBAR. And that study does show, if you're a fee weenie, you're worried about the 1%, that study does show that if you do use a financial advisor, you will make more money on average than if you tried to do it yourself. So there are a lot of reasons to call us here at Floyd Financial Group. Get that conversation started. You can do that by calling 417-889-7233. You can do it this weekend. Phone lines are open. Leave your name, your telephone number. Ashley will call you back, set up that appointment. Make that call this weekend, 417-889-7233. It is a casual conversation, no tie zone. This one call could make all the difference. You can also find out more about us online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Well, Randy and Jake, it's always nice to be with you, but the clock says it's time to go. So for Randy and Jake, I'm Jeff Shade. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again next week with another edition of Floyd Financial Group Show Me the Money right here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
The information provided in the preceding program is for educational purposes only and are not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein believed to be from reliable sources, however, we make no representations as to its completeness or accuracy. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Financial planning offered through Floyd Financial Group, LLC, an investment advisor registered in the state of Missouri.